Welcome to a new episode of the Electrek Podcast. I'm Fred Lambert, your host, and as usual, I'm joined by Seth Wintram. How are you doing, Seth, for this last podcast of the year, 2024?
I'm good.
All right. So it's going to be a short one, unless you guys have a ton of questions or topics you want our takes on, because we're going to have plenty of time for that, because obviously the last week of the year / Christmas time and all the holidays and all that, there's not a ton of news that comes out. We still have a few interesting news items I want to discuss. We also just released the Electrek Car of the Year announcement, so we're going to get into that. Then a couple of Tesla news. The NIO Day 2024 that happened just earlier this week. So there was a few interesting announcements in that. A little bit more detail, or the Honda-Nissan partnership merger being official. So we're going to discuss that. And then if you guys have any questions, I know probably going to be fewer people live today because it's the holidays and people have other things to do. But still, we're going to have plenty of times. You can put in the comment section right now any question about any of these topics. We're going to discuss our expectation for the EV world in 2025, maybe your hope, though I think our hope and our expectation might be quite different. There's going to be a gap between those two. I thought 2025 for the longest time, that 2025 would be like the year where EVs just break out and take over. And I think it's still going to be the case in some market, but unfortunately, I think in North America, it has been delayed quite a bit. All right, so let's start out with the Electrek EV of 2024 set. So that was your choice. Well, I mean, I agree with it, but that was you when we were discussing it, you came up with it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a good choice. The Volvo EX30.
Yes, so all the way back at the end of 2023, we went to Spain to check out the EX30, and it was quite impressive. And we thought, oh wow, this is coming to the US. It's going to kind of replace the Bolt as that small little quick EV that's going to be out there. And we were very excited about it. I certainly was. And there's some varieties. There was an off-road version. There was like the all-wheel drive version is incredibly quick, 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds, which it makes it Volvo's fastest car ever. I mean, they had the sports cars, but it's the fastest car in their lineup. It's also one of the cheapest cars and the cheapest EV they offer. So that's kind of a dichotomy there. Of course, Volvo is now owned by Geely, a Chinese brand, but Volvos are still, some are made in Europe. This one and a lot of others are designed mostly in Sweden still. They have that Gothenburg headquarters. So it's kind of a world car, and that's one of the reasons we like this vehicle, because it's going to be in China, it's going to be in Europe, it's going to be in the US. Eventually, some dealerships have just gotten their first allocation of them after that year where Volvo was intent on bringing the Chinese version to the US, and then Biden dropped the I think part of the IRA thing was, oh, by the way, Chinese made vehicles now double price, 100% tariff. So 100%, Volvo was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll make them in Belgium now and ship them to the US, which is kind of ironic because, they're still importing them from China to Europe, and then they're going to be importing them from Belgium to the US. Like, why not build them in South Carolina, one would say. Anyway, a lot of geopolitics, and, for better or worse, that's kind of representative of the, EV space going forward, right? There's Chinese EVs, BYD, other ones that are so inexpensive and, pretty high quality that are, knocking on the door. We haven't let them into the US yet without the 100% tariffs. Nothing has been very successful. I mean, I guess Polestar 2 is, it's one of them. In Europe, it's a big deal. But beyond that, the EX30 is actually a pretty impressive vehicle. I was blown away by how impressive it was as a low-end car. The stereo sounds amazing. It handles really well. There's an all-wheel drive version that, as I said, 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. Even the rear wheel version was super impressive, both speed-wise and agility wise. We took these off road a little bit. I mean, not off road, like on dirt roads. Handled really well. They have 7 inches of clearance, so that micro SUV moniker that they use is a little bit more apt on this, and it looks a little bit more. Yeah,
it looks more like an SUV than the Bolt EV. Like you compare it a lot to the size of it, and I think yeah, like you said, it's like between the EV and EUV. But
right.
I even think it looks more like an SUV than the EUV.
For sure.
I would think, yeah. But yeah,
So,
I understand your point though, that it's like the format is a big part why we think it should be car of the year. There's just not, it's an underserved format in the EV world right now, and like you said, it's like everything is going bigger, and we need something that pulls the trend down a little bit, but also the fact that it's there's something about a car that's available worldwide, and I understand that some markets have different needs than other markets, and it does make sense sometimes to have a car just for a specific market and then something else for another. But also, if a car, like Model Y is the best example, obviously, if a car is successful globally, there's probably a reason why. Like it hits the mark in a lot of different things. And yeah, I think this could be it too. Obviously, it's a little bit too early to tell right now in the vehicle program's life. I mean, the Model 3 took 3 years to become the best-selling car in the world. It's absolutely impressive. I don't know if that's going to be the case here, but I think in the next few years, it could turn out to be a very successful vehicle program.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at Norway, we can look at a couple other places. It's only second to the Model Y in terms of sales. It's blowing up, which is interesting because, Europe's obviously they have smaller roads. They're more okay with small cars, although it does seem like even in Europe, cars are getting bigger and bigger. But, you have those old, medieval towns that have the very narrow roads. Something like this is going to be much better for that. There's also a lot of other smaller things. I talked about the safety. It's a Volvo, so it's going to be quite safe. It got 5-star and then CAP ratings. It's one other thing about small cars is like you don't need as much electricity to go as far, obviously. So even charging at 150 kilowatts, which is like the standard charging, I would say probably the most common. You're going to get 25 minutes. You're going to get from 10% to 80%, which is what you typically want. So you don't need to go out and find those 350 kilowatt chargers to get a super fast charge. And it's really nice to have like the towing capability. Like it just hits all those little things. And I don't know if they're going to. I can't remember if they're doing towing in the U.S., but it obviously is mostly the same vehicle, so it should be able to tow. And like if you look at it, it's a pretty good. Like I think it's a really good looking car.
Yeah, the design is universally liked. I think it's not many people are. It's not a polarizing design. Like it's sharp, it's clean. The interior too. No, I didn't post any the interior, but the interior is also very Volvo-like, just clean interior. Some people don't like the lack of instrument cluster, but it is becoming more and more popular in vehicles these days.
Yeah, that was that's probably my biggest gripe is they have a center console, kind of like a Tesla, but it's a small display, and if you're using Google Maps, for instance, it's a very it's weird. It's somebody's saying the YouTube isn't live.
Oh, are we not live on YouTube? I thought it was waiting to be live earlier, but that was before we actually went live. So
weird. Let's have a look. Sorry, we're doing a little tech.
But Skrunkle did say we live on YouTube. On YouTube, yeah. But yeah, I'm live on YouTube. Okay, Dan is on YouTube. So I don't know. All right, I'm not sure what's happening. Maybe refresh if you're not seeing it. Well, if you're not seeing it, you're not hearing me either. So
right.
Don't listen to me. But yeah, we had a comment from someone in the on your post already. We just posted the article, so it's not there. But we had someone from a Volvo dealership that just got the first few, I assume in the U.S. Because he was talking about U.S. prices. And he himself, like someone who's relatively biased, is not impressed with the price of it. Of course, I think they are getting he says both the demo that they receive is over 46. So it's normally the demos are often the fully loaded version. So this is obviously the all-wheel drive version.
Yep.
But they are comparing it to the Equinox EV, which I assume it's because of the price range. It's very much the same price range. And it is smaller, yes, but it's also like GM and Volvo, and I'm not trying to throw shade at GM, but Volvo is considered a little bit more premium than GM, just to start with. And also, I haven't driven the Equinox myself yet. Have you driven the Equinox?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't remember your exact opinion on it, but I know that generally speaking, in the industry, the opinion is it's not as well reviewed vehicle as the EX30.
I would agree.
That's fair. just to be nice, let's say. Last trip that I had with other auto journalists, that was a subject of conversation. Like a lot of people like just completely panned it. I don't know if it's worth.
Well, it had bad software out of the gate. I think that and the Blazer, but also, the one that he's talking about is a all-wheel drive premium, like it has all the interior stuff. So that's going to be more expensive. The $35,000 one is coming, I think, in April or middle of 2025. Yeah. So that'll be more similar to a Chevy Bolt.
Chevy it's Bolt kind of in the same situation as the Equinox last year, where the more expensive version came out first, and the 35,000 version came out half of the year.
Yeah,
I'm starting to see a ton of them around here. The Equinox, meaning. All right, we have a couple of Tesla news to discuss. The NIO Day on the Nissan, and then we're going to jump into the comments, and we're going to discuss also our view of the EV world in 2025. So if you have any comments on that, what do you think what do you think is going to be important trends in 2025, whether it's political, whether it's technology-wise, whether it's a specific vehicle program that's coming out that you're interested in, like the X30 that we're going to keep a close track on in 2025 because we think it could be a significant one. Put them in the comment section right now, and we're going to get to it in about 15 minutes. All right. Speaking of that, one of the vehicle programs I'm most excited about in 2025 and moving forward is the Tesla Semi, of all things. Since the Model 2 / $25,000 Tesla has been scrapped, I think it's the most exciting vehicle program at Tesla because I'm interested in the 2 new cheaper EVs based on the Model 3, Model Y that are coming out next year. Just not that excited about it because I think they're gonna capitalize. I think they will help Tesla, maintain its sales, maybe grow a tiny little bit next year, but not much more than that. I don't think they're going to move the needle that much because I think they're going to help, but then also capitalize Model 3, Model Y. So there's going to be somewhere in between. Tesla Semi is more interesting because even though we have other Class 8 all-electric trucks out there, like the Cascadia from Freightliner, there's a few other examples out there. Nothing that has been, high volume and profitable, which is Tesla's expertise. Tesla makes electric vehicle in a high volume and they make money on it. And if they can do that with a Class 8 semi-truck that has, enough range to be usable and enough cargo capacity to still be profitable for the operator, then it can sell like hotcakes basically, because a lot of people, they buy trucks based on a spreadsheet. Like, can it actually reduce my cost of operation? Yeah. Can it do the work that I require it to do? Yes. Let's do it. Let's update the fleet. And but the program hasn't been smooth, to say the least. Like, such a weird vehicle program to follow. Like, unveiled in 2017, supposed to come out in 2020, doesn't come out until 2022. In 2022, Tesla actually announced the start of production and unveils a production version of the vehicle. But then a year later, not much happened. They just built a few that they use themselves, and the PepsiCo, like a customer partner for Tesla, uses. And then they announced, now we're going to actually build a factory for it in January 2023. But even then, they announced that and nothing happened for basically a year after that. More than a year, really, because at first Tesla announced an expansion of Gigafactory Texas, which is something that we reported about a year prior, that Tesla actually finally planned to grow Gigafactory Texas. But now you have, they decided why they waited a year between January 2023 and actually starting construction of that factory is like it moved from an expansion of the factory to a different factory next to Gigafactory Texas that we see here. And what we're reporting on today is an update on the progress towards that, because that is where the Tesla Semi is going to be produced in high volume. And the structure has been finished, or at least the steel structure for it. So it's not, you can see that the building is not completely like closed up and everything. But Dan Priestley, the head of the Tesla Semi program, announced that the structure itself, the steel structure, is up. There's going to be a second steel structure expansion, he said, to it. So it's not, it's a building, but it's not as big as Tesla's other factories. And looks like it's on track for start of production in 2025, probably late 2025. So I don't expect Tesla to produce a ton of Tesla Semis in 2025, but it could really well be the start of volume production of it, which should be very impactful in the future. All right. This was an interesting one, and I think that can help us launch into discussion of 2025 in the US too, because it's a lot about politics. And I think the EV market in the US, unfortunately, is going to be a lot about politics next year rather than the technology. Elon, well, Tesla, like it's so hard to separate the two these days. But last round of lobbying in the U.S. for the tax credit, for the EV tax credit, Tesla and Elon were in disagreement, really, because Tesla was lobbying for the tax credit, and Elon was lobbying to kill the tax credit, to remove it entirely. The discussion, of course, was the reform of the tax credit from the limit of 200,000 units to no limit, so not to throw a stick in the wheels of the early adopters. Now, Elon is obviously still against it, and he wants Trump to kill it. This time, you cannot differentiate Tesla and Elon on that subject. The reports came out that Tesla has reached out to the Trump transition team, and they agree with killing the EV tax credit in the U.S. So now they're on the same page. But what's very interesting about this whole thing is Tesla elsewhere is not doing the same thing. It's not consistent in their lobbying for EV incentive in the U.S. versus other markets. And the example here that we have came from the UK. The head of Tesla in Europe, Mr. Joe Ward, reached out to the new UK government after the election earlier this year and sent a letter to that was recently uncovered to the new Minister of Transportation there. And in the letter, he argues to increase incentive for electric vehicles and to make it revenue neutral by increasing taxes on polluting cars, on fossil fuel powered vehicles. A very intelligent approach, I think. Something that makes a lot of sense, and something that Tesla is taking an official position on in the UK. They want that, but completely different in the US, which I think to me, and it's something that I've been reporting on for a while. It's why I sold my Tesla stock. Is like I think there's something clear here that Tesla is not about the mission anymore to accelerate the advent of electric transport. There's things that are above the mission. There was always other things, other than the mission. But I've always felt that Tesla was good at putting the mission first. Now, this I think is a clear example of not, because why would you lobby for this in the UK but not in the US? And the only answer that I can come up with, and if you guys have a better answer, you could put it in the comment section right now, but it's Elon's politics. Elon right now cannot come out and say that he wants tax credit for electric vehicles, and especially cannot come out and say that he wants higher taxes on gas, because now all of his friends, all of his allies are all people that think that all taxation is theft. And if he come out saying that, he's in trouble. Like he's going to lose a ton of his support, which is growing thinner in the U.S. It's heavily sided on one side of the political spectrum too. So he cannot do that. So Tesla is inconsistent on this, I think, because of Elon's politics, which take higher priority over the mission, which blows my mind. Do you agree, Seth? Am I reading this wrong, or does that make sense what I just said?
No, that's the problem. Is like, how do you separate the the head of Tesla versus the mission? And the problem is that you can't, right? Like, he's still the CEO, and as much as he's going off the rails, like, you can't, Tesla in the UK, maybe pro EV stance, but like, they lost the plot in the US. They're not. There might be a different thing. Like, maybe it makes sense to kill the EV incentive now because Tesla's in such a commanding lead of the, and their cars are actually competitive with gas cars, for the price. So, like, strategically speaking, it may be advantageous for Tesla to take over, to be, the car manufacturer, but it's certainly not advancing EVs in general.
No. It's about them. Like, if you want to make the argument for Tesla, there, I think it's still going to hurt Tesla for the most part. I think, and even Elon admitted that at least short term, it's going to hurt Tesla. And the question is, like, by how much? And I think it's going to be significant. I think 15 to 20% sales hit would make sense to me. But yeah, the idea that you can make is like, all right, but it will hurt people more, other automakers more, and we would come out on top. I just don't like that mentality at all. I think it's ridiculous.
Same.
All right, NIO Day was on the 23rd or maybe 20. Yeah, that was 22nd. We already had a pretty good idea what was coming out of that event, but now it's all official. So they have the second sub-brand from the big Chinese EV manufacturer, Firefly, which the first vehicle that you can see here is the first one from the Firefly brand.
Look at those lights.
And it's, yeah, interesting lights for sure. And it's a smaller vehicle. It's something that's going to compete with the Mini brand, with the Daimler Smart brand. And it's in the similar segment. And it's going to be international. So it is a brand that NIO wants to bring to Europe. No plan for the US, obviously, and it's probably not the brand that they would want to start with in the US anyway, but just in terms of segment. But it is now available in China and soon enough in Europe. And the CEO was clear about the market they're going after. It is the Mini and it is the smart car. First model available in April in China. Europe shortly after, so that's interesting. Apparently, even in the first half of the year. And they have a starting price in China of 150,000 yen, which is equivalent of about $20,000, which is about the same price as the Mini Cooper in China. So again, against what market they're going after. The vehicle itself is not bad looking, but yeah, the headlights are an acquired taste, maybe. Yeah.
Fred, maybe we should make a New Year's resolution to get to China in 2025. I feel like that might be something on the agenda.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I would love to just, I mean, I've been hearing great things and everything, but experiencing them in person is something different. And I would like to get some hands-on experience with some of these cars, including this one. So the other part of the NIO Day, was the Firefly launch, but also the official launch of the NIO ET9s. And this is interesting because, we when we talk about Chinese EVs, we often talk about the cheaper offering because we don't have that in other markets, especially not in North America. There's nothing as cheap as it is in China. But another reason why we want to check it out is that they have the entire spectrum there, and they have things that are very, very impressive in the higher end of the market. And this is what they're going after. This is an SUV that starts at the equivalent of $108,000 US, and it is stunning and extremely well equipped. The interior here, you have a display that goes all the way through, and then you have the giant center screen. limousine type of interior. And I don't think there's the video in there, but I've seen some. We didn't put the video, but I see a very impressive video of the suspension system that they have in there. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. They put champagne glasses in a kind of a pyramid shape on top of it, and then they ran over at full speed over a bunch of speed bumps, and didn't move at all. The glasses, very impressive stuff. Yeah, $108,000 is the version with the battery pack, because NIO is sticking to this idea that they sell battery as a service. So it starts at $90,000 and the equivalent of $150 a month to rent the battery pack, which in China is something that people are into. And the battery swapping aspect to it is, I have to give credit to NIO. Like, I didn't think that battery swapping at the consumer level would ever work for EVs. And, it didn't work. Europe tried it. Tesla had the thing in the US, but that's purely a thing to secure incentives, and it didn't last long. But in China, it is working, and they are bringing the concept to Europe. So it is a pretty big SUV. It's also a very intelligent SUV. They have all the latest 5 nanometer chips in there for autonomous driving. Steer-by-wire technology, 925 volt platform, 100 kilowatt hour battery pack that they say is good for over 400 miles, 650 kilometers, which of course this is CLTC, and 100 kilowatt hour it's a big SUV and it looks pretty aerodynamic. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets close to that. Dual motor powertrain with 180 kilowatts in the front and 340 in the back. So 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds. Not bad. 105 liter front cargo. I wish we had a picture of that. Oh, right. Coming in March 2025, they already sold out the first version, the limited edition, but they're coming out with a signature edition that's also going to come out, and then they're going to start with the regular version at the $108,000. But there's a few of these things. There's the BYD's like Tesla Roadster competitor that I also would like to check out. Like they have, it's not just about cheaper manufacturing. It's also about they have great technology. They have a technology expertise that's very impressive in China. All right, one more news item, and then we're gonna, do a kind of free-form discussion about the EV world in 2025 that you guys can get into. You can comment live on YouTube, X, and Facebook. So we discussed it a little bit. It was the rumor last week that Honda and Nissan would merge. It's been confirmed through the release of a memorandum of understanding. So it's official that the discussions have started to. The details are light, but it does sound like a complete full merger of the companies, which gonna take some time, obviously, including Mitsubishi is gonna be involved, which Nissan is already a 24% stakeholder in Mitsubishi. So the goal is to get things moving. There's going to be, the Mitsubishi's involvement is complicating things a little bit, but it's expected by the end of next month to be included in the MOU. And then the merger should be completed by August 2026. So, a lot of things can happen. I'm sure there's regulators that needs to get involved. This is, two huge companies, but they're gonna be a big player if this goes through. The Japanese car industry is gonna be very different. It's gonna be Toyota and whatever comes out of this. I would assume that with such big brands, they will retain their brands, and it's gonna be some
Nissan.
kind of. Yeah,
Honda.
I think it's gonna be more like a Stellantis thing where they're gonna merge the companies into something else, and then keep the Honda brand, keep the Nissan brand, and the Acura and Lexus, not Lexus.
Infinity.
What's Nissan's premium brand?
Infinity.
Infinity. You're right. Yeah. So something to keep an eye on into 2020, and that was one of our 2024 or maybe 2023. I don't remember which one. things to look into in the future of EVs short term is consolidation, because we've been saying for years that the electric revolution is shaking things up to a degree that a lot of the legacy players are having a hard time to keep up. And this is Honda and Nissan. They're both of them are saying that's where we are merging. By the way, they are saying, I think the Honda CEO said this is a 1 in 100 years type of industry shakeup, and we need to partner up to survive it. So it's like they're not they're not joking around. Like, they know what's happening and they're trying to adjust. And I think this is probably the right thing to do, because things were not going well, especially for Nissan. I think Honda was doing a little bit better, maybe, but Nissan was not doing very well. And I think they just announced like 5,000 job cuts and all that.
Yeah, Nissan kind of went south as soon as they fired, or whatever happened to Carlos Ghosn. So, it kind of felt like the things went off the rails, regardless of whether he was innocent or not. Like, it seemed like that was an unexpected surprise.
That certainly did not help.
No. And like, man, I can't wait for that movie to come out about his escape from Japan in a music instrument container, with Navy SEALs help, in a jet to Lebanon. Like,
Yeah.
Where is that?
Yeah, they definitely movie material in there.
All right. Well,
All right.
our concern about the holiday lack of people is eminent now. We only have a few comments, but one is about Kempower charges. We have not checked out their Durham factory yet. I was actually in North Carolina checking out a charger factory recently. So it's interesting, and I also saw Kyle Connor there. So it seems like a hotbed for charging stuff now.
But I did test out their station, Kempower. My friend Sylvain has one of their 400 kilowatts, not the megawatts, but the 400 kilowatt station. And it is very impressive. It's just seamless interface. And I mean, I'm not as knowledgeable with that stuff, but Sylvain owns a bunch of different fast chargers. And it is his favorite by far. And I think it's the one now. Sylvain is doing an expansion of a bunch of electric avenues, he calls them. It's a bunch of charger. It's a new fast charging brand that he's launching, and he's using Kempower for those two. So definitely, apparently, it's making waves in the charging industry now. Kempower.
Cool. All right. Imagine if Elon argued Tesla should come out with a hybrid or ICE car in the U.S. Do you think that's a possibility at this point?
No, I don't. No, because it's more like, I mean, politically it might be like you could. I don't put it past him, like he could have done it. It's just, but for just from a technology standpoint and strategy standpoint, it just doesn't make sense for Tesla. It's just too different. Like, unless they would buy engines from other companies and things, but it would be too difficult for Tesla. So as a direction for the company with Elon at the helm, I wouldn't even be surprised. But I think the execution of it just doesn't make sense.
I could see them doing something like what Scout does, where they have the Rex, like the old BMW i3s, where they basically just throw a generator in the back with a tank. And they say, hey, this, you can fill it up with gas and it'll be, generating electricity while you're driving. That's an easy fix. They don't have to change too much to do that. But and when I say fix, I mean totally ruining the experience. But yeah, that would be weird. All right, Dan Oberstay, question for Electrek. Any word on when Lucid will get access to Tesla superchargers? In 2023, they said 2025, but no time frame updates since that I've seen.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything new either, but I think things should start moving a little bit faster in 2025 for the rollout of access, because there's just a few more that need access, and then things are going to start rolling pretty fast. I should mention that I haven't posted my review yet because I'm still testing out. I still have it in my garage, but I'm testing out the Lucid Air Touring right now, and I'm really impressed by the car. It's the driving dynamics on these things are very impressive. I think in a lot of ways, I think this is like what the Model S should be right now. If Tesla still cared about the Model S and still kept like investing in the program, because very impressed. The first day I got it, I needed to drive it back from Montreal to Shawinigan, and it was in a big snowstorm. So I was stuck in a snowstorm for 2 hours driving this thing. And a brand new car that you've never driven before, plus a snowstorm. Like normally, that's like extreme caution. And obviously, I was being careful, but the car gave me a ton of confidence driving it. Like it's a heavy vehicle, obviously. If you have a good winter tire, you're heavy, you're gonna get some good traction in the snow. So it wasn't that helped a ton, obviously. But the driving dynamics were absolutely awesome. Like sometimes I was looking down, I'm like, "Ooh, I'm going a little bit too fast for this snowstorm." Like it's you don't feel it at all. And also just on Christmas Day, I drove from Shawinigan to Quebec City, drove in Quebec City and parked the car outside without having it plugged in, and then drove all the way back from Quebec City to Shawinigan on a single charge, didn't charge at all. I arrived with only like 20 kilometers of range left or something, but still, the impressive thing of that is like, okay, this is a 600 kilometers, 300-mile car, whatever, 400-mile car, but and this was like 400 or so kilometers, but it was down to minus 18 C, minus 1 Fahrenheit temperature that day. And if you've driven EVs in that kind of temperature, that's impressive, because the range goes down fast in those temperature. And I didn't change my driving at all. So I drove on the highway. I drove like normally on cruise control at 119. And
Miles or kilometers?
In kilometers an hour, yeah, that would be fast in miles. So I did that and arrived without any problem. My girlfriend was getting crazy nervous about it. She just like kept telling me like because the car, the Tesla does that too sometimes, where it's like the navigation tells you to stop at a charging station to get there because it's getting too nervous about your range. And I'm like, nah, I know I can get there. And on the way to Quebec City was super cold too, and I saw the range difference between go down faster than the actual distance I was going at. So I was doing some mental calculation, and I'm like, I think I'm going to be good. On the way back, it was going down too fast, minus 18 C, but I arrived without problem. And yeah, I'm really impressed with the Lucid Air so far. Very impressed. But I'm going to have more to say about that next week with a full review.
All right. Well, Tamaki asked, will the U.S. be able to launch a competitive EV battery production company?
Oh, good question.
I could see like an offshoot of Redwood Materials doing a battery company.
I mean, Redwood Materials is doing the right things in terms of like, before we have I assume you're saying EV battery cell manufacturing company here. But before we get there, we need the entire supply chain of it in North America, which we don't have right now. But we are starting to get all the pieces of the puzzle together. I mean, Tesla is doing the lithium refining right now in Texas. In the Canada here, we have some cathode production going on. We have the graphite refining going on. Like we have a bunch of these things that are getting put together. And Redwood is also doing its thing on that front, putting the anode material, the cathode material, all the refining that needs to go through there. And then eventually, yeah, we do have the battery cell manufacturing. You have Tesla, obviously, that is doing it. They have the battery cell production. They have a few other players too. You have Ultium, that they all are not seen as successful yet between Tesla and Ultium, just because of the volume they were getting at right now. Tesla is having some issues too with their 4680 cell with the Cybertruck, as I mentioned earlier last week. It's not ideal. And Carl is in the comment right now, and he says Nordvolt failed. Yeah, it's not an easy business, especially when you have players like CATL, BYD, Panasonic, these giant company and it's becoming more of a commodity. But Nordvolt failed in Europe. They went bankrupt, but they do say that they're still doing their giant factory in Quebec because it's financed differently, aka by the government. It's not a good look. I'm sure people are gonna rethink the government. People are gonna rethink their investment in that, because if it failed in Europe, why would it not fail in North America too? Especially if the North American market, EV market, goes down next year, which I think is very likely. We're gonna have to rethink things. It's a lot of these investment that we saw during the IRA, during the Biden era, because of the Inflation Reduction Act, they're gonna cool off in 2025 because of the rollback that Trump is gonna do. So it's gonna be a lot about how efficient his rollback is gonna be, and all those investment, all people see past the Trump administration after that. Because let's be honest, the Trump administration is for 4 years. What happens after that, who knows? But those investments are for much longer than 4 years. So a lot of these companies are thinking past the Trump administration too. It's just that, I mean, would you bet on the Democrats winning again? Like if you cannot win against Trump, how can you win, period? Oh, boy.
Yeah. Okay. All right, moving on. Way to give up the mission. Lucid Air Touring is what my wife now has. She hates Elon.
Yeah, it's a great car. I mean, I'm jealous of your wife.
All right, Rudy Halbright has a 3-parter here. We seem poised to have more availability, so we're talking about 2025. V2X equipment in 2025, and I'm glad we're now standardizing on V2X, because there's like vehicle to grid, vehicle to home, vehicle to load, vehicle to grid.
Yeah, the nomenclature was pretty confusing.
V2X, whatever, vehicle to whatever equipment in 2025, and I think increased risk of climatological disasters is going to increase interest in using your vehicle to back up your home. I think that's very true, even in Texas. But hard to know how they will be tempered by likely loss of EV incentives. That said, the tax credit can't go away until the act of Congress, so we may have some time left. Well, Congress is going to vote pretty soon on that, I think. Also, as a disclaimer, I help lead our V2X efforts at PG&E. Interesting. We might have to get your contact info. But I do not speak for my employer, just my personal opinions. For what it's worth, the ZUM vehicle to grid bus project has been a big part of my work.
I mean, the buses make so much sense for that too. Yeah. Like it doesn't make, not all EVs make sense for that. Like consumer level, like I've never been super. Again, if you use V2X, yes, I'm excited. Everything that's bidirectional charging has a lot of value, but in terms of the actual like vehicle to home aspect of it, it's like, yeah, it can be useful, but I think it depends on your situation, like especially like the investment size of having a bidirectional charging set up at home versus the value that you're gonna get by sending energy back to the grid. It can be widely different in different markets. So, and then you have to consider, okay, as a backup power. Yes. So if you were gonna get a generator, then maybe yes, it starts to make sense, because I think it's much more efficient than a generator, and in terms of cost comparison, it's very similar or even sometimes cheaper. And obviously, you don't have to buy gas anymore. So there's a lot of value in that. But I think for at the consumer level, the most of the value is the vehicle to X. So vehicle to vehicle is interesting. Bidirectional chargers just for power equipment, powering a trailer, powering things like that. I think that makes a ton of sense. At the utility level, the bus makes a ton of sense. Like school buses, especially things like that, should all be bidirectional, in my opinion.
All right, we have a few more comments, but any last things? Put them in right now. That'll be the last comments of 2024. All right.
We can put them. We can discuss a little bit more our thoughts for 2025. Yeah. So, what do you think is going to be a big, important trend in the EV world in 2025?
Well, I mean, like just to piggyback on Rudy's stuff, I do think vehicle to grid is going to be a big deal. Vehicle to X is going to be a big deal. It kind of puts away, like if you have a good vehicle to grid system and a small battery, you kind of don't need power walls anymore. You don't need battery backups. You don't need generators. And that's a huge market. Like that's a huge thing that doesn't need to exist. In addition, all of a sudden now you have, this extra camping capability. I've been recently doing a lot of camping in the back of the Tesla Model Y, just, long road trips and other stuff. And that's fantastic. I was reviewing this inflatable mattress back there. It's just like, oh, this is very comfortable. It's super comfortable. Like, why would you get a hotel when you can, just crash in the back? You have the temperature, you have the thing. So there's a lot of nice things about electric vehicles that I don't think we've kind of scratched the surface on yet. What about you? What's big in 2025?
Well, I mean, for years I've been saying, like, I think 2025 is the year that EVs just take over, and like no one in their right mind is gonna buy like a gasoline vehicle past 2025, because they're gonna have a new vehicle, I should say, because there's gonna be a better electric option in every segment of the auto industry. I think a lot of markets are getting there. In Europe, like in Norway, they've been there already. A bunch of European markets, I think, are going to get there in 2025 too, where like the majority of new car buyers go for EVs. China also seems to be going there very fast. However, in North America, obviously not the case anymore, for political reasons. I mean, literally the president of the United States has been poo-pooing EVs throughout the campaign, like using it as a talking point. That's been very weird, and it's made EVs political for some reason, even though they don't need to be. And obviously, the tax credit going away, big deal. So I think a big trend for the North American EV market in 2025 is going to be how the politics affects the market. I think that's going to be a big deal. So when the tax credit goes away, I think it's more when than if at this point. And then how is the rollout of the pullout of the tax credit is going to happen? That is going to create, likely, if they do have a grace period, which I don't even know if they will have that, but normally they do. There's a little bit of a grace period, and that should result in a boost of EV sales for a while. So that's going to help a little bit, but long term it's going to be hurtful. So it's going to be interesting. How do the EV companies like obviously companies like Rivian and Lucid are not going to do too bad because their vehicles are already more expensive, but next year, or at the end of the year next year, once they have their next generation vehicle, especially Rivian was counting for the R2s, was counting on those tax credits to help deliver higher volumes. And if that's going away, that's going to hurt Rivian more than anything, I think. And then I want to see how all the companies that made big investment in North America in both electric vehicle manufacturing, but also the battery supply chain, how are they going to react to the new policies? Again, because it's going to hurt them all for sure. It's going to hurt all these investment. But I think some of them are going to see past the Trump administration and say, okay, yeah, but I still need to invest in that because, EVs. I think for most people that are following the industry closely, they know that EV is the future. Like electric vehicle, electric powertrain is the future in the industry. Is that people disagree just how fast it's going to take over. But if you know that, like, you don't want to lose your expertise, and that's what Elon is aiming at right now. He thinks that if he can hurt these other companies enough, they're going to lose their EV expertise. They're going to fall behind even further, and Tesla's going to take over everything, and that's going to be the advantage, even though it's going to slow down the market for a little bit. I disagree with that. I think that's going to be bad for the US, going to be bad for the North American EV market, and going to be bad for our market in general. Tom Mickey says, will sodium and solid state batteries debut in 2025? I think that's a good point, and I was going to mention that sodium, I haven't been following as much, but I've been following the solid state batteries for a long time now. And yes, I think 2025 is going to be a big year for solid state. I know a lot of people have been saying that for every year. I've not been the guy that says like, hey, solid state is coming next year. But, and I'm not saying it's coming next year, but I think 2026 is probably when you're going to see commercial electric vehicle, consumer and commercial electric vehicle, like volume production of EVs, consumer EVs with solid state batteries. In 2025 is going to be probably the year where you're going to start some like clear announcement of. I think there was one or two vehicle program announced this year with solid state for 2026, 2027. But I think there's going to be a bunch more in 2025 announced for 2026, 2027. So companies like Solid Power working with BMW, QuantumScape working with the Volkswagen Group, Fractional working with Mercedes, Hyundai has its own effort too on that front. And there was a news this week that said that they are setting up their demo line right now for volume production end of next year, 2026, I think. So yeah, I don't think 2025 is going to be the year of where you're going to drive an electric car that's going to have a solid state batteries in there. But I think 2026 is going to be that year. So there's going to be a lot more solid state stock in 2025, I think.
Well, I agree with all that.
Mm-hmm.
It would certainly be a benefit to, like the EV field if the solid state batteries, which offer much quicker charging, less degradation, smaller size, all that stuff. But also, we're seeing with the iron phosphate batteries that we're getting some of that stuff. The stability is better, the density is not like, but for low mileage vehicles, that seems to work out pretty well. Hopefully, some of that comes to the U.S. We've been hearing, Ford had with cattle bring a battery manufacturing plant to the U.S. and that was kind of scuttled by, I think it was scuttled by like the federal government. I think something about cattle building here.
Yeah, they didn't like the percentage of the company owned by China. They like, no, it's
Right.
not. They don't like that. Yeah.
So it would be nice to see. I mean, the iron phosphate chemistry was, I think, pioneered by that guy who just recently died at like 95 years old. Good enough.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to see, the U.S. kind of getting into that world a little bit more, maybe without catalyzing it. What else are we thinking in the EV space? Like what's kind of exciting car wise or technology wise?
Car wise, I mean, Aptera would be really cool to
Yeah.
like if Aptera could come out successful 2025. I think that would be really nice. Just because, like I said, the smaller EV market is just not there in North America. There's just not that much going on, and the high efficiency side of things is also very interesting to me. And that's what the EVs are about. It's about making travel more efficient. Spending less energy to travel. And Aptera is just the ultimate version of that. So it's just there's not that much traction behind it. They're having a ton of issues raising money. So I'm not saying that there's a high probability of chance of success for them in 2025, but it's something that we're gonna keep close eye on because we want them to succeed. I think that would be very cool. I think electric pickup trucks too are going to be a bigger thing too. I think they need some momentum there. The market is going to be a lot more fleshed out in 2025 with now the cheaper version of the Silverado out. There's the cheaper version of the Cybertruck that's also supposed to come out next year. So with these two now, the ramp up on the side, the new Lightning also is supposed to come out in 2025.
Well, the Ford T platform is supposed to debut in 2025, and we haven't heard much about that in a while, but that'll be
That's
super
right.
interesting.
Yeah. It's been kind of dead for a while on that, but that plus Silverado ramp up plus the Silverado and all the other GM pickup trucks, plus cheaper version of the Cybertrucks, I think we're going to see a much more robust pickup market in the U.S., which is obviously significant because the pickup truck market in general in the U.S. is huge. But the thing is, like, all that is always compared in the background with the EV tax credit. So if you want to ask me, will the EV pickup market grow next year? I think yes, by a double digit, maybe low double digit. but I think other EVs are going to be hurt a lot more than that. So I think if we see flat EV sales next year in the US, I think we'd be lucky.
Yep. All the headwinds of the Trump administration are going to be there.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of stuff. There's going to be a lot of, but maybe this is the opportunity. Maybe the EV space has had enough, scaffolding now with the incentives and the IRA to boost the infrastructure. Maybe now is the time that they don't need incentives. Maybe they can stand on their own. Some of these like Hyundai, Kia make a lot of compelling EVs that I think without incentives, like Tesla, kind of compete well in the marketplace. Obviously GM's getting there with Ultium, Ford making some progress, I guess, with the new T platform. The German cars are pretty interesting as well, like Mercedes with their E-Class. I think the E-Class or the E1, like the Motor Trend Car of the Year. I was doing some research for the car thing. The BMW i4 has been like, I know some people who've gotten that car, they love it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I would never buy a gas car again. So I think there's enough compelling EVs that even at a more expensive price are going to be bought over the gas counterparts at this point. I think
they're better products. So yeah, for sure, it will continue. It's just, price is a huge factor in buying a car because it is a huge purchase. So it's gonna hurt no matter what to just increase the average price. But I think, like I said, I think we can still see a flat year for EVs in North America despite this huge price increase, just because of the EV momentum. And like you said, the scaffolding is there. It's just that in the US, we have not seen the result on the penetration of EVs. Like 9% is, for a country as rich as the US, it's bad. Ronaldo in the comments here has a good point. He asked any idea about EV used car market in 2025. So that's a good point.
Well, I would add to that, like now that the early model Tesla Model 3s, 2018 to 2020, Model 3s are popping up on the market at like 15,000 for like, all-wheel drive, solid builds. So now all of a sudden you've got a pretty compelling EV for $15,000, a couple years old. There's a lot of Chevy Bolts that are out there, maybe even cheaper than that. That'll still get you 250 miles of range and are pretty solid cars. So I think the used car market for EVs is really awesome.
Yeah, and you're gonna get a lot of it lags relatively like 3 years behind the new car market. So you have to go back like in 2021, 2022. How big was the EV market? It was starting to get bigger.
Yeah, that's right.
That's when the volumes. Yeah, that's when the volume started really coming in. So the used car market is going to feel that like 3 years later. So yeah, 2024, 2025, I think 2025, 2026 are going to be huge years for used car market. In North America, a lot of that is going to be Tesla pricing, obviously, because that's where the volume was 2-3 years ago. And I think there's a lot of things that could make things interesting for used car prices for Tesla vehicles. Obviously, now the lease buyback program in place. Tesla not having the lease buyback before that, now taking those vehicles, thinking that they were going to be self-driving, but them not being self-driving, which means they're not going to use them in their fleet like Elon originally said he would when he said that. So what they're going to do with them, they're going to sell them. So there's big that. I think Tesla is going to continue trying to upgrade Hardware 3 owners to a new vehicles because they are a liability for them. Having sold them the vehicle, telling them that they're going to be full self-driving in the future, that's a liability for Tesla, and I don't think that they want to retrofit all those cars. I don't see that happening. So I think we're going to see a lot more Hardware 3 vehicle coming back to the used market, and Tesla just selling them as non-full self-driving vehicles, and that's going to be also a huge market. So yeah, I think there's a lot of that coming. Plus, non-Tesla EVs, but obviously 2 or 3 years ago, Tesla had 80% market share in North America. So a lot of the used market is Tesla right now. But I've seen there's good deals too, like for people that just like great cars, but don't want to pay the full price on it. Like you can buy now like a Porsche Taycan or like
I was just going to say the Audi GT. You can get those for
Audi
like
GT is,
35,000.
and it's a great car. It's a very great car for that price.
Yeah, basically a Taycan.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that going on too. That's gonna be a lot more fun. I think we should probably do like some kind of Electrek like a series, like one post of the week that's like a great used car EV deal. That's good. Like it's gonna start to make sense to do that probably next year. So I think that's a good idea.
I still like looking for like weird EVs that are for sale, like a Chevy Spark EV or a Fiat 500 E, like an early one with a bad battery, that's got like 40 miles of range, but you can get them for like $5,000 or something silly. And they're kind of like go-karts at that point.
Yeah, there's fun things to do with that. Yeah. All right. Do we have a couple more posts and then we're gonna leave?
All right, we got it talking about Iona, top 3 charge point operator.
So is that European Iona? I don't
No, that's a new one in the US. They're going to start using the Albatronic hardware. I saw the CEO there. So we'll see if that happens. ZEV credits have gone from 300 million to 800 million for Tesla in Q3 of 2024.
Yeah, I mean the ZEV credits is something else, and Elon is not talking about them too much.
No, that's weird. He's not mentioning that at all. Like, let's get rid of that thing.
Yeah. So, and even the other automakers are not against, or they're not lobbying Trumps to kill that too, because just because it's getting just too complicated to just like bringing them back, changing them. Like the program is just getting crazy. It's like leave it as it is, and we'll figure it out from that. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that Tesla is making a lot of money on ZEV credit because they only sell electric vehicles.
Yeah, and I hope the CEOs of like GM's Mari Barra, for instance, don't like flip flop again. Based on who's in the White House, because they've done that, and then every time they're late on they're late on that, and then they're late on the next one because they're always like trying to gauge what the political scene is going to be like, instead of just like building really compelling vehicles, which should be their focus. So
should be. Yeah, the uncertainty and the constant changes hurt just as much as just the removal of the incentives.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's pretty much it for us this week and for the year 2024. We appreciate every single one of you that joined the program this year. If you do enjoy the Electrek Podcast, you can give us a like, a thumbs up, whatever it is on your app. It's free to do. It helps the show more than you think. You can also subscribe, hit the notification button to know when we go live. And you can leave us a review on your podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify. If you give us a 5-star review, it helps the show a ton, and we appreciate when you do. And we're gonna see you in 2025. Have a fun holiday, a fun New Year's, and see you later.